Once upon a time, in a galaxy far, far away. I'm kidding. But here comes the tale of my 3 buckets. Little bucket, medium bucket, and big bucket. Alright, so when I first started van life, pretty early into my van life, I had a green bucket that was about this big. It was kind of a catch-all for any situation where I needed a bucket, including me lining it in order to go to the potty. Now, I mostly just used it for wastewater, so there wasn't really a big deal of what went in it so much. I did not use it as a wash basin. So it was like pretty much just for waste. It was big enough to like honestly give me a good target for urine when I had to go to the bathroom in the van, and then I could put it in a smaller container for dumping, you know, as soon as I could get to a rest stop. So it was really good for that. When I had wastewater, I'd just dump all the wastewater in here, and then I could carry it somewhere and get rid of it. I mean, there was just a lot of ways having the bucket was useful, and I would put it under my Reliance foldable stool toilet, which I'll throw a picture up of if I can find it, in order for it to be the sort of security blanket for my waste. I've since then ended up with 3 buckets. Now, there is a reason. The green bucket I had that was about this size developed a hole in it. So I went on Amazon. I didn't really pay attention to size, and I ended up with this bucket. This bucket is significantly smaller than this one. Like, it can completely fit in there. And it just wasn't going to work for me for the purpose that the green bucket that did. So I went back on Amazon again, searching for a replacement bucket that was going to do the same job as the old green one. And then I found, I'm going to put this back here, I found this big one right here that has my towel on it. And it had a lid, and I was like, oh, this is super cool, one with the lid. But then this one turned out to be huge, like much larger than my other green bucket. In fact, I have pictures I took before I threw the old green bucket away. And so it was the same color, but it was huge. Like, this bucket can fit in this bucket with this bucket in it. So yeah, that's how I ended up with 3 buckets. But it's actually turned out to be really, really useful to have the 3. So let's start with what I use each bucket for, and let's start with the little guy. So the little guy is basically my morning wash basin. Now, before I had my dish pan, I used to wipe it out. I didn't really like using the dish pan, both for washing myself and washing dishes. It was just a little weird, even though I was sanitizing it between uses. So now I have this bucket that I keep completely sanitary just to put water in there. So I line it with a little bit of water. I stick my washcloth up in there. I soap it up. And this is while I'm sitting in the van. I wash my face. I wash my underarms. I wash my naughty bits. I wipe my feet off, that kind of stuff. So I use this for my morning wipe down on days when I don't have access to a shower, and this is basically what I use to clean myself. This bucket has become pretty much a designated toilet bucket. I will use it for wastewater sometimes when I have to. When it makes sense, I'll like use it because it's just for wastewater, so it's not anything I'm going to drink out of or you know, consume things out of, and I still clean it after every use. Now, I like to leave this out beside my bed at nighttime. And honestly, when I have to urinate, it's just a good target for urination. It's nice and it's big. There's all these cutesy little things they want to use so that women, for lack of a better term, can pee as nicely as men. And sometimes those things just don't work for me. Like, I've tried them, and I'm not going to try to target a small little bottle. Like, it's not going to happen, especially sleepy in the middle of the night. Now, I don't line this with anything. It basically just goes straight into the bucket for urine, for transfer to another disposal unit. But this gives me a target I know I can hit. I don't even set it up in any special way. I don't put my weight on it, because obviously if I put my weight on it, it's collapsible. It'd start collapsing. I just squat over it, to be quite honest. Now, that's number 1. When I have to do number 2, I still use this bucket. Now, basically, I have a new toilet. I didn't really talk about it. I got it a while ago. I got it when I was back in Oregon, and it replaced my old Reliance folding toilet. Now, I do miss the old Reliance folding stool, because it basically, it it hid away, like you couldn't see it. Once I folded it up, I could hide it in a corner. Nobody saw it. Nobody noticed it was there. It was just kind of out of eyesight, which was really, really great. And of course, the bucket collapsed as well, so it obviously went away. The problem was the top of the Reliance toilet is basically made of fabric, at least the 3-stool toilet. They do have a hard-sided toilet as well, but the particular toilet I had, it was made of really thin fabric, and I am not a small person, and that fabric began to rip over time. I sewed it together, I repaired it a number of times, but it became clear that it was time to go. It sort of reached the end of its life, and so I ordered a new folding stool toilet. Now the bad thing about the new toilet is it does take up more room, and I can't stash it away as easily. I've still found a spot for it behind my bed, right beside the ladder, where it fits really nicely, and it's kind of out of the way, but it's not as out of the way as the old toilet, but that's okay. The upside is it's really, really stable. So basically, this is how I set it up. So the first thing you want to do is set up the toilet, which obviously involves unfolding it and hooking the front leg into the front of the seat. Next, you just take your bucket and you uncollapse it. Then you're going to place it underneath the toilet. Note, you could also just place this toilet over top a cat hole for a comfortable place to sit. Now we remove the lid. These bungee cords were something that I owned. The toilet comes with Velcro strips to hold the seat on. One of the few things I wasn't fond of. Now we add a bag for our waste to go in. Now we're ready to go potty, at least number 2. This method is fully usable inside the van. Now, what I love about this particular toilet is that the lid fully covers the toilet part. So when I put the plastic lid on top of the regular toilet seat part, it's a really stable surface that's not touching the surface that I sit on when I go to the bathroom. Now, obviously, clean that toilet part consistently, but it's nice to have another layer over the toilet seat part. So now finally there's my shower bucket. Now I did a whole video on this particular bucket as a shower bucket. I'm not sure if it's coming out before or after this one. As far as me editing it and getting it online, I guess I'll know by the time this goes up. But basically this one has a lid, and because it has a lid, I wish I had a second one almost that I could use, that I didn't have to keep sanitary, because I want to keep this one sanitary for shower, that I could use sort of as for exterior stuff. That, let's say you have smelly stuff in your van that you don't want to keep in your van. Let's say you have an animal and that animal has dog poop that you've picked up. Well, maybe you don't want to keep that in your van. Well, if you're in a situation where you can keep a trash can outside of your van, you can put that in here and then close it up and leave it closed. And then when you leave the campsite, you can take this with you, and the first chance you get to get rid of your trash, you can pull it out of here, but it'll be underneath a lidded container and you don't have to keep it in your vehicle the whole time. So that's what I really like about this one. It's big. It's not only is it big, it's much sturdier. Even the bottom is sturdier than the other two buckets. Actually, the little one has a pretty sturdy bottom, but this one has a really flimsy bottom. I do notice, because my green one wore out, that they will wear out over time. So that's just part of the deal. I think of something that contracts and expands as much as this does, it is vulnerable to being poked, prodded, torn. But even a solid bucket can crack. Not crap, I was going to say crap. So like I said, this bucket will be featured in its own video, so I'm not going to get too much into it, but It's really great. It's really large. It has a lid. It's really solid compared to the other two. And since I ended up buying it and it didn't really work because it didn't fit underneath the toilet, which is where I was originally going to use it, I still really love it as my shower bucket. I still would have wanted a separate bucket as my shower bucket. And so I'm really happy that I ended up buying it, even though it was a total mistake. I intended to replace one bucket and ended up with 3 in different sizes. All right, I don't really have much more for this video. Just wanted to talk about my 3 buckets and how they've ended up in my life. I am happy that I have all 3. And the good thing about the collapsible buckets is I'm not going to be able to do this very smooth. They collapse.